I've been slowly making my way through Bret Easton Ellis's most recent novel, The Shards, which came out early last year, sometime last year. I've been plodding through it, even though I've been enjoying it. It's fucking long, and typically I'm a one book at a time type of dude, but this time I've had a bunch of books on the go, and this one I've been going slow with it because I've actually really been enjoying it. On one hand, he's kind of smushed together his kind of greatest hits of serial killer, teenage, young adulthood angst, drugs, California, all these kind of like common motifs through Ellis's canon, but it works, and it's basically just like a aesthetics smorgasbord with lots of early 80s fashion music references. So I've been enjoying it. Just taking me ages to read it. And yeah, it's another example of Bret Easton Ellis employing autofiction, where it's the main character is Bret Ellis, who's an aspiring writer in his final year of high school, this prestigious Los Angeles high school, and it's based on his own life. However, there's flourishes and clear artistic license, but it's based in his own experience. And so I guess it's him using autofiction. And I've always found that term funny because for years I actually confused it with automatic writing, which is essentially like Kerouac style, get a fucking big wad of paper and hop yourself up on some amphetamines and let it all fucking hang out. Whereas autofiction is like, autobiographical fiction. And so it's weird. I confuse the two because they couldn't be further apart. One is all about kind of just letting shit flow onto the page. And I just did a quick Google of automatic writing, and apparently it's meant to help you kind of connect with otherworldly spirits who can kind of write through you. Whereas autofiction is kind of the opposite. It's like twisting your own history, like really kind of pondering about what happened, um, and then kind of manipulating that to fit the narrative, or the other way around, or just like you've got a narrative and there's some holes in it, and so you could go down the path of creating up, some fictionalized account, some character backstory or relationships within the book or whatever. Or you could be like, oh, this kind of reminds me of what happened to me. And I can just be lazy and grab it. Um, so anyway, it just got me thinking about in terms of like, are you ever in a position to tell your own story? Are you by default too close to the scene of the crime to actually have any type of meaningful connection to what happened? You've got connection to it, but do you have any actual insight? Is what I'm kind of wondering. And so on one hand, you've got Bret Easton Ellis, who he's done it throughout his entire career. He's done it with the Shards, which is like his high school book. Lesson Zero is like his post high school book. Then he's got less Rules of Attraction, which is his college book. American Psycho, which is his New York years, and then Imperial Bedrooms, which is him back in LA trying to be a Hollywood producer. So all of his lots of his books, he calls them his autobiographies, like many chapters of his autobiography, his own stories fictionalized through his novels. So you got Bret Easton Ellis, and then the other corner in this pretend bout of fictionalized styles, you've got Quentin Tarantino, where I saw some soundbite from him where he was saying, I'll never tell anyone why, but Kill Bill and all my movies, they're really deeply personal to me. They're about me. Um, they're about things that have happened to me, but he disguises them through different characters. You know, there's no Quentin Tarantino character. Although you could argue in True Romance, which he wrote but didn't direct, the Christian Slater character in True Romance is pretty QT-ish. But that aside, everything else is kind of like dressed up and kind of fictionalized for the screen. Yet he's got this like deep connection. He's saying something about himself through his movies, and he's kind of like it's a confession of sorts. But you're not going to get that direct access like you would maybe with a writer like Bret Easton Ellis. So that's interesting as well. Um, but yeah, I guess what I feel is that you know, you catch yourself all the time when you kind of like tell people what, you know, let's say you haven't seen someone for a couple of years, you catch up over a couple of beers, and you kind of fill them in on what's been happening with your life. And even if you're not trying to, you tend to make yourself the fucking hero all the time. You just by oftentimes total accident. I think it's also just like the nature of storytelling, and that like it's easier to put yourself at the center of things as opposed to like kind of go out on a limb and tell someone else's story and then make yourself a secondary character. Maybe that's more risky than just being like, here's what happened to me, and maybe like putting more glory or more importance on your own role uh in the story. But you know, I basically I've landed on I have not lived an interesting enough life to ever think I need to turn this segment of my life into a book or a movie. If you're someone in that realm, you might want to kick the tires on that. Or maybe not, you know, like maybe that's the fucking joy of like I don't know, Bret Easton Ellis dropping American Psycho and his friends, where people would, because if he'd approached people and said, here's my idea, they would have been like, dude, that's crazy. You've just been doing coke at parties around the fucking Lower East Side and Midtown for a couple of years. Relax. You met a couple Wall Street frat boys. No one's killing anyone, and they could have talked him out of it. So maybe that's the beauty of kind of like taking fragments of your reality and then just like fucking running with it like crazy. But the way I see it, the way most writers would work is that, at least for me, I have the idea first, I have the concept for the story, and then you flesh it out as best you can, and then you kind of then you can kind of like look in the rearview mirror. You can look at your own history and think, do I have anything that's happened to me that is going to inform this in a meaningful way? Because I think that's the tricky thing. Sometimes you just want to shoehorn something in because you just want to be like braggadocious, be like, hey, check out this. This is what happened to me, but it's not really serving the story. Um, so yeah, you could be doing that because you're kind of feeling fucking braggadocious. Or as I mentioned before, you're just lazy. You're just like, oh yeah, I can't be fucked. So maybe there's a better option for you if you just spend a bit more time working on fleshing out your fictionalized world. Or I think the most egregious crime is that you're trying to like make yourself the hero, or how you think you reacted at the time in the moment to be some type of like esteemed or heroic act. That always kind of stinks when people do that. Yeah, you can also kind of take it completely in the other direction as well, where it's like you're the fucking biggest loser in the world. I guess that was kind of like, in a nutshell, Louis C.K.'s FX TV show Louis, which just he was the complete scummiest dropkick of all time. And then while as he kind of like failed more and more in his TV show, his star kept rising. within Hollywood being like, oh my God, he can't do anything wrong. This man is farting flowers. And yeah, but then like the stories he was telling about himself, which was equally as unbelievable as someone trying to make themselves to be some fucking Jack Reacher type of like MacGyver-esque Mr. Fix It, I'm a fucking all American hero, where it's like, dude, Louis, you're a fucking great comedian, and clearly you've got some talent as a writer and a producer and a director as well. You can't all be fucking masturbating in front of people or art exhibits that say the N word, getting in trouble with some 6 out of 10 on a date. So yeah, I don't know. I would feel like it's just feels on the nose when people go uh one way or the other, where they're like, I'm the fucking best, or like, I'm the absolute worst. Nothing ever goes right for me ever. Um, yeah, I'm not really sure I answered this very well on this episode. However, it's basically it's the conclusion I've come to after reading the shards, is that he's leaning on stuff, and yeah, this is kind of like a side note, but I think ultimately you're it's kind of like you're letting people into your stories and your experiences, your takeaways, your kind of like that type of stuff. But it's more like the world that you occupy, that you exist in, that I think people are kind of interested in. It's that's the key, really. And so I think you can take liberties with your own stories, um, as long as you're kind of like they're like an entry to a cool world. That's what I'm getting with the shards, at least. I want to go back to the early 80s and drive around in these cool cars and listen to this music. And I kind of don't really give a shit what percentage from 0 to 100 actually occurred, IRL, because the world itself is kind of interesting. So, anyway, ran over. Thanks for listening. Catch you on the next one.